Welcome back to my channel. I am going to the library tomorrow, so I thought I would come on quickly and go through the books that I am going to be donating. First of all, I have a few little comics and graphic novels from Field Mouse Press that I will be donating. We have A Root-Bound Plant Needs Space to Grow by Stacey Zhu. We have Ambiguous Blue by Noah Sciatti. We have Cookies and Herb by Matt McFarland. Is that one? We have Unrest by Uris Tatarkins. And we have Double Take by Kat Foyle. There's nothing particularly wrong with any of these books. I really like Field Mouse Press as a publisher. I always support their new seasons of comics. I just yesterday supported their most recent one. So I get quite a lot of books from them come through and I like to read them. Some of them I like, some of them I don't like, and I think it's always good to clear some space for new ones, and hopefully these will end up on the shelf at the library and somebody will read them and like them. Next we have The Echo Man by Richard Montanari. I have nothing to say about this book. I was given this as a gift years ago and it's just been sitting somewhere on my shelf since then and I'm never going to read it, so let's go. Next we have Supplication by Noor Abi Nakul. I read this last year, I believe, and I really hated it. I was really, really disappointed. This is a book about a woman who wakes up in a basement, she's tied to a chair, she is murdered, and then she wakes up again in the basement and she hasn't been murdered, and she leaves the basement and tries to figure out what's happened, which is such an interesting premise. This book was awful. It's literary horror with an emphasis on literary, and the writing is really, really not good enough to sustain a kind of literary voice. She just kept saying things that didn't need to be said. She would say that a character was grimacing and then describe his face grimacing. You don't need to tell me what his face is doing. You don't need to tell me he's screwing up his face and squinting his eyes, because you've told me he's grimacing, and that's what a grimace is. It was that constantly. For me, I really like literary fiction, but I think it's probably the hardest type of fiction to write, and I don't feel that literary fiction is saying lots and using lots of really good words. It's actually saying as little as possible and using the best possible words to describe the situation that your characters are in. This completely failed as a horror novel, as a literary fiction novel. I can't believe the amount of praise that I've seen it get, because I just think it's a nothing book. It's so empty. It's trying so hard to say something and it's not saying anything, and I was so disappointed by it. Next, another book I was disappointed in, which is Shuggy Bane by Douglas Stewart. I've had this on my shelf for a while, maybe since it came out, probably not right away, as it's a paperback. And I was looking forward to it. I just didn't connect to it at all. This is about a boy growing up in poverty in Scotland in the 80s and 90s. His mother's an alcoholic, his dad is not really in the picture. And something I found really interesting about the author was that he said that he felt like he had to leave the working class, he had to become middle class in order to write about the working classes, and that's exactly the feeling that I had about it. If I had found out that Douglas Stewart was just middle class and had never experienced any of this, I would have believed it, because it felt like such an outsider's perspective. Like any negative stereotype you can think of people on benefits, any horrible opinion you could have about poor people, about people in poverty, about people struggling, alcoholism, anything like that, it's confirmed for you in this book. Like, there's nothing challenging that. It's saying, yeah, it is just like that. That's exactly what it's like. There are people scrounging. There are people falsely claiming benefits. All this. So frustrating. And just not very well written. The writing wasn't good enough to sustain the story that it was trying to tell. I felt like there was just such a lack of sympathy from the narrator, in my view, towards the women especially and what they were going through. Just the language that was used and the way that they were kind of dismissed. I really struggled with this book, and not in a good way. I think there are books like this that I've read that you struggle with because they're so harrowing or because they're so difficult to read. But this one, I felt like it was just harrowing, one harrowing thing after another, but presented to you in this way of like, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, I just didn't feel a connection to any of these characters at all. They didn't feel like real people. It didn't feel like real life, even though it absolutely is. And Douglas Stewart has lived experience of this. I just didn't feel like it was... I didn't feel like it was written for people who had gone through this. I felt like it was written for people like me, who have no experience of this whatsoever, and like to tell people that they've read books like this so that they can impress them and say, look, I read this book about, you know, working class people in Scotland, and isn't it awful what they go through? And it's more like a performative thing to hold up and say, wasn't this amazing? And no, it's not. Next we have In This Corner of the World by Kono Fumio. I wonder who translated it. Adrienne Beck. This is a manga about a young woman growing up in Japan in the 1940s. She gets married, so she becomes a housewife. She's kind of muddling through, trying to figure out what her life is going to be. And obviously, concurrently, the Second World War is going on, and we're building up to the attack from the Americans, the dropping of the atomic bomb, everything like that. I really liked this. I'd already seen the film years ago, and I picked this up not long after I saw the film, meaning to read it right away, and obviously didn't read it right away, only just recently read it. I really enjoyed it. I didn't like the way that the translators or the sort of historical notes were presented. You would read something in the book and then there'd be a historical note in the centre, so you have to turn the book like this, right by the spine here, to try and read it, and then you keep going. And I felt like, I don't know if that was how it was in the original Japanese. There were lots of historical notes in the middle and you had to keep turning the book. I felt like maybe it should have been relegated to the end so that we could read all of the historical notes after the story, because I felt like it was kind of taking me out of the story every single time, and I didn't feel like I needed that much explanation. I felt like you could have just let me be in this world, not understanding things, because I wasn't there, I didn't live here, I didn't experience any of this, so of course I'm not going to understand everything. And then maybe there should be a historical thing at the back to explain some of the terms that were being used and things like that. Other than that, I thought it was really good. It's very moving, it's really sad, it will make you really angry, and I just think I would love to donate this to the library. I know that in our library system we have a lot of manga, and I would love to contribute even more to that. Next we have The Buffalo Hunter Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones. I'm not going to say much about this. I have a video reviewing it. I liked it. I didn't love it. There is no point in keeping it. Next we have a book that I haven't read, which is Circe by Madeline Miller. Last year I read The Song of Achilles and I really wasn't impressed with it, so that kind of made the decision for me about this. This wasn't even mine. I think someone gave it to me or ended up on my shelf. I don't know why I ended up with both of them when I hadn't even read one of them. So they aren't related. They're just by the same author. I'm not interested anymore. Last but not least, we have another manga. This is Our Colours by Tagame Gengoro. It's translated by Anne Ishii. I was really frustrated with this. This is a book about a teenage boy who is gay. He's in the closet and he meets this man who is older than him, much older than him, and is also gay and not in the closet. And they kind of help each other through their issues that they're experiencing at the time. Tagame is a very interesting mangaka. He started out in porn, specifically bada, which is like gay porn with very muscular men. And the content is, you know, it's not wholesome, if you like. There's rape, there's torture, there's bondage, there's incest, all of that. But that's what he wrote. That was what he was known for. And recently he's kind of moved into more wholesome, if you like, more family-friendly manga, things like Our Brother's Husband, which I haven't read, but I've heard really good things about, and things like Our Colours, which is less about, you know, sex. Obviously it's not pornographic, and it's more about the kind of issues in society surrounding homophobia and things like that. You can still see some of his background in the way that he draws these characters. The characters are very muscular. The old man is really muscular. The teenage boys are really muscular. When the old man is talking about his past being in the closet, the kind of turmoil that he felt is depicted as him naked, you know, covered in thorns and vines and things like that. There is something fetishistic about that. But for the most part, it's a really lovely, poignant story about a teenage boy accepting himself and having other people accept him, and also kind of challenging homophobic ideas about relationships between teenage boys and older gay men, and how actually they can just be a mentor and a friend and not a threat. Unfortunately, the last few pages of the book ruined that, and I was really, really frustrated. manga is very difficult anyway to recommend to people. And I hate when you get something that is so close to being something worth your time and worthwhile, and then there's just one thing at the end that kind of takes that away. And in any other book, I don't think I would have had as much of an issue with it. I would still have an issue with it. But when this book is it's trying so hard to challenge those homophobic ideas and those stereotypes, it's working really hard to do that and doing such a good job. It felt like Tagame just undid all of his work at the end. And all of the... I don't know, it just flew in the face of everything that he was trying to do, and I was so frustrated with it. So I don't know, I got really angry and I didn't want it on my shelf anymore. So those are the books that I will be donating to the library when I go to work tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed that. I don't know when I'll do another book Unhaul. I don't think it will be monthly, but I will always show you the books that I'm donating to the library. Thanks for watching.